All right, looks like we're live. Give me a second, guys, because I'm going to have to switch out the link for yesterday. Apparently, OBS is not liking, for some reason, the link I had set up. So let me share this out. And let me get the stream share going. Put this over here. Excuse me. Oh, salute. Okay. So what I thought we would do today is go through some JavaScript exercises. And the way this works is we will essentially do pair programming. So what I'd ultimately like to do is you get this so that folks that are interested in learning or being a part of these we can basically establish partnerships where we talk through the code. Probably the easiest way to do that is through like a Zoom link. So maybe that's something I can set up in the future. For those that are interested, you can simply in the chat let me know that you're here, and what we can do then is, like I said, set up some kind of a Zoom link. Can actually probably get that set up now. So let me see if I can. Well, I'll do that actually on the next one. So this is the JavaScript portion of our challenges, and the reason why this is important is because as you develop your apps, you not only need to know, say, for example, C++ for the smart contracts, but React basically is derived from foundations of JavaScript. So this site, csbin.io, is actually a pretty good site that has basically just has some challenges for developers to learn about the fundamentals of the language. So what I thought we'd do today is just go through a series of those, and for those that are interested, you can go through it on your own as we go along. You can just go to csbin.io and go through the exercises yourself. So we'll see how your boy Phoenix does. This is what you're seeing on the screen. It's a console. So it's basically a built-in, within the browser, has kind of a JavaScript console that you can interact with. And then on the bottom, you can see you have a run code, end code, save, start over, and theme. So what I can do is I can set up a special link, csbin.io jp, or let's see how you do this. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, if you go to this site now in real time, I think it'll actually link to this exercise we're doing. But you don't need to do that. You can just go to csbin.io. So let's just keep it simple for now. We'll just kind of do separate things. And as we probably get organized, I'll set them up so that we can have one screen that we can all look at. So on the right side, so I didn't finish that. On the run code, if you hit run code right now, it'll run the code within this console, So the console.log, if I run the code right now, we should see hello world. So there you go, hello world. So we know it's working. And that's about it. So let's get started. So we'll do an intro to JavaScript. We'll start out with those, and then we'll work our way up to the other challenges. So I'm going to read through the challenge and then we'll just try to tackle it as a group. So the first challenge is here, replace the blank underscores inside the console logs with the data type, i.e. string, you think each value will be. Leave the quotes. So for the example they give, they have a var my str with the value hello, and there's a console log, which is a function in JavaScript or method that will spit out the data. So in this case, you're spitting out the type of my string equal to string, and what that will do is that I believe it'll return a true or false. So we'll uncomment the lines. We're going to follow the instructions. Uncomment the lines below to test your code. So I'm going to uncomment these lines 6, 7, and 8. We'll start with those. So type of 7.0, I'm going to say that is a number. Here, let's just do one of them to start with. That way we're not getting ahead of ourselves. Oh, number's not defined. So what we're going to need to do then is we're going to need to, because I'm not an exact expert on this stuff, so MDN data types. And I'll show you guys how we work through this stuff. You can go to the developer.mozilla website, and they have an explanation of the numbers. So I think maybe my issue was, I'm guessing maybe I needed to have a uppercase. See that number. Okay, there you go. So it's false. So I did get the right type, but it's not. I did get a type of a data type in JavaScript, but it's not the right one. So I'm actually looking to see. Let's see, MDN number types. Well, we know it's not a number, so well, one way we can do it is we can actually use the console log to do the type of. So let me show you what I mean. So let's comment this out. Come here, console log, type of, and it says number. Interesting. Thought we had put that in to start with. So let's do that again. Console log, number. This is a bool. This should be a boolean. that? Oh, I guess it needs to be in quotes. I didn't know that about JavaScript. Let's try that again, guys. No. Boolean. Okay, so I guess that's how JavaScript is apparently. So we'll do number. I didn't know it had to actually be in quotes, so number. So if we did this exercise right, we should get trues. There we go. So I guess if you're doing the type of and you're equating it to a data type, you have to be in quotes. I actually did not know that. So now we're gonna define a var, my var, and we're gonna do the same exercises now that we know what we're doing. So console.log type of my var is equal to, and in this case we're gonna put undefined. Undefined, true, so we did that right. So just to keep track of these a little bit better, I'm gonna comment out what we've already reviewed and go through the rest of these, and we'll just make sure that we understand the exercise. So we got a my var. We're gonna add our name. In this case, we'll say Phoenix. And console.log type of my var we know is gonna be a string. Comment out, and we'll go to the next exercise. So true, we did that right. We're ready to move on to the next set. So challenge 2 is to create a function build sentence that takes 3 words, strings, and adds them together, and console.logs the whole sentence string, complete with capitalization and punctuation. So the way this is going to work, guys, is we're given a function build sentence with 3 parameters, word 1, word 2, and word 3, and what we're asked to do is add them together in console.log the whole sentence string, complete with capitalization and punctuation. So they want us to essentially, if you look at the example here on line 30, they invoke the function build sentence with the 3 arguments. Coding is awesome, and if you notice here, the first letter of the first word is capitalized. So let's talk through this and figure out how to solve this problem. First step is to take in the first word and capitalize the first letter of it. Second thing is to let's see here. So they're actually not using a console.log when they test this function, which means we're going to need to use the console log. Console.log the 3 words together with space between. So I'll just show you guys how that's going to work. For the first to capitalize the first word, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say let result, or let capitalized word equal. And we know that when we work with strings, guys, for JavaScript, we can we have access to it like an array. So if I do like I'll just show you guys that to start with. Let me comment this out. If I do console.log word 1 and I call the first element like an array, it should actually give me the first letter of that word. I'm going to show you guys why that's important. So let's call this just for an example. So I'm going to invoke the function build sentence with the, again, the parameters coding is awesome. What I'm going to do right now is just test this principle that JavaScript allows us to have access to elements, say within a word, right? This string, I can take the first element. So in this case, if I'm calling console.log word1 0, that should give me the letter C. So let's try that out. There you go. So on the bottom here, you can see C is shown on my console log, which means that I have access to that method. And then what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to look up the toUpper method for JavaScript, because they're all a little different. Like if we're going to work with C++ or JavaScript, it's all a little different. So in this case, what we're looking for specifically is a method that takes our value, in this case a string, a letter, and converts it to uppercase. So we know we have this method toUpperCase that allows us to do that. This documentation shows us the basic usage. So all you have to do is call the value and then invoke the function toUpperCase with parentheses, with no arguments. So we're going to copy that syntax over, and I'm going to come back to my test here, word1 0 toUpperCase, and now instead of getting the lowercase c, I'll get the uppercase C, which is part of what we need to do if you follow this exercise. I'm doing this a little slower for this first one, just so that folks that maybe are new can follow along. So I'm going to run the code. You can see we get the uppercase C. So that's exactly what we want. Now what we need to do is I'm going to comment that out because that was just a test case. We're going to go back to our let capitalize word. We're going to use word1.0, and we're going to have toUpperCase there. So let's copy that in, toUpperCase. And then we're going to say we're going to need to combine that with the rest of the word. So how might we do that, guys? Well, we know that JavaScript also has substring functions that allow us to take portions of, say, a string. So in this case, since we changed the uppercase, the first letter of the first word to a capitalized C, we know that we need to return a portion of the remaining string, so the rest of the words. So how this function works, guys, is we can use this function substring. It's a method that returns part of the string between the start and end indices, or to the end of the string. Now what's important to remember here, guys, is where these indices start. So in this case, if your starting index, I believe, would be 0. So if you wanted your first element, you would actually, if you're calling this function, you would actually use 0. In this example, you could see they're using the start at 1 and ending at 3. So if you count this string, this Mozilla, which is the example they use, if you count 0 as M, 1 as O, it's going to start at O, so it's going to return O, and it's going to return through I believe. So it should be OZI. Oh, I'm sorry, OZ. The end is not included because it's between the start and the end. Oh, I totally goofed on that, guys. So the way this works is it returns, let's read that again, part of the string between the start and end indices. So it doesn't count this as 0. It starts this as 1. So M is 1. And in this example, it says to end at 3. So it's going to stop before that. So 1, 2, 3. Am I interpreting that right? Let me see. Let's look at another example. They have 2 here. That's for the rest of it. And it's to Zilla. So 0, 1, 2. Yeah, I think I did that right. So O is 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So in our case, what we're interested in specifically is it would be that after the first one. So in this case, we'll just call the substring at index 1. So let's try that. Word 1 dot substring. Let's copy that. Word 1 dot substring 1. And then what we're going to say is we're going to go to console.log and we're going to say we're going to take the capitalized word and we're going to combine it with a blank, and then we're going to add word 2, and then we're going to add a blank, and then we're going to add word 3, and then we're going to add a blank and a period. Well, period like such. So if we now call our function through this build sentence, coding is awesome, we should actually get this result that's shown here. So coding is awesome with the capitalization and the period at the end. So let's give that a shot and see how it goes. There we go. Coding is awesome. So we can also run the next test and we should get, I'll comment out line 34. And if we invoke this function again with the arguments of we're number 1, we should get a capital W and combined sentence. So let's try that. And there you go. So that works. So let's go on to challenge 3. Challenge 3 is, let me just see what's going on here. All right. Last letter. So create a function last letter that takes a word string and console logs the last character letter of that word. Hint, remember that each letter or character letter in a string has an index position that you can access with brackets. So we have this function, guys, called last letter, and it takes one argument, which the parameter they're defining here is word, which is a string, and console logs the last character letter of that word. So really the key thing to remember is what they're giving you here as the hint, that each character letter in a string has an index position that you can access with brackets. So what we're going to do, we'll create some pseudocode. We'll say, there's a couple of ways we can do this. One way to do it, I think, is probably using that substring. I'm wondering if it works in a negative way. Let me just check. I'm curious. Or we can even use a slice, I believe. So let's go to MDN slice. I'll show you guys a couple different ways that I would imagine we could do this. One is the slice method. And the slice method allows us to, well, do I want to use the slice method? No, that's for the array. So I think we could do this because if we check the syntax here, the animals.slice with the argument of -2, it returns the last two elements of the array. So if we use this and we just say -1, that might do it. So we'll give that a shot, and I'll show you guys the more traditional way to solve this problem. So what we'll say is console.log word.slice -1, and then we'll comment these out. We'll comment the first one out. So in this case, we're invoking last letter with an argument of hello. Obviously, the last character is O. So if I've understood the slice method correctly, if I use -1 as my argument for that slice method with this word, then it should actually return O. It should print out O. So let me comment out these previous exercises so we can just keep track of the work we're doing. There we go. So that is a valid method to solve this problem. It's actually probably the most elegant in my opinion. You can see I've run 3 different tests. I have last letter with the argument hello, string hello, which should return just the last letter, which is O. I have last letter with the argument goodbye, with the last character being the exclamation point. And I have last letter with the argument provided is Zeltoid with the capital D. So in all cases, I got the correct results. Now, what's another, I guess more traditional way to solve this problem without using those inherent, say, JavaScript methods? Well, another traditional way would be to create a for loop. Let's go through that exercise, guys, show you another way to solve it. So we can just say for let I equal to 0 while I is less than word.length, and you're going to increment I, and then we're going to we can actually just so let last character, you can set this to blank or undefined, and then what you're going to do, so let last character, I'm going to assign that to blank, which is just the like a storage for the value that we're looping through. So what the for loop is going to do is it's going to go through our string that we've provided. It's going to go through each letter. It's going to kind of increment through them, and the idea is that once we finish our for loop, we would be at the last letter. So whatever I have stored at last character would be what I return back. So I'll show you guys how that would work. We'll assign last character, and we're going to equal that. We're going to assign that word at index I to last character, right? So I have this for loop I've started. We're incrementing through that string. How I'm accessing that is through this index. See this array call? So whenever you see these little brackets, it means that you're accessing the element at that particular value of the string. We're going to assign that to last character, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to return last character, right? Because I finished cycling through that word. If I've done all this right, I should get the same results. It's just another way to solve the problem. So I like to actually tackle these a couple different ways. I actually don't return it. I'm supposed to console.log last character. Let's try that. There we go. That's just another way to solve the problem, guys. So 2 different methods there you can play with. We'll comment those out for now. Let's see how many problems we can work through. So we've been going for about 30 minutes. Let's see how many problems we can get through in an hour. Function build greetings is next. Create a function build greeting that takes a time integer, any string, and prints a greeting based on the following rules. If the time is between 0 and 11, write good morning. If it's between 12 and 16, write good afternoon. And if it's between 17 and 23, write good evening. If time is anything else, there's not a real time, maybe you need some sleep. So let's code this out. So we're going to take 2 arguments here, or 2 parameters, time and name. And we'll need to create some logic here that determines what time we're at and what we do based on that response. So a simple way to do that is just to create a set of if statements. If time is between 0 and 11, write good morning. Name. If time is between 12 and 16, write good afternoon. If time is between 17 and 23, we're going to do write good evening and name. And again, this is just pseudocode to help us understand what we're doing. So if time is anything else, that is not a real time, we'll write that comment. So let's code this out. So if, what are we looking at here? So if time is between 0, so if time is greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 11, right? Then we're going to say console.log good morning, and we're going to add the name, or we have good morning, comma, and we're going to add the name. So in this case, we're going to add the plus and name, just like that. Else if, and what we can do now, guys, is just copy this syntax. So else if time is between 12 and 16, console.log good afternoon. So we'll change this. Good afternoon. There we go. Else if, we'll just copy, we're just going through our syntax, right? So our pseudocode. So the next one is 17 and 23. And this is going to be good evening. So we'll change this. And then our last one is else. And the else, if you guys remember, means that it's not a real time. So we're going to change this up a little bit. And we're going to say that's not a real name. Oh, that's not a real time. And we're going to add the name. We'll add a period. Maybe you need some sleep. So let's try that out. Let's check our syntax here. I think that looks fine. We have our closing brackets for our function, so I think we're ready to go. So we'll call this first function and see if we'll invoke this function, build greeting. We'll test it out with an initial argument of 8 and the name of Maggie. And if this is right, without looking at the answer here, thinking this through, should actually go this first case, right? Because 8 is between 0 and 11, so it should provide a response, good morning, with the name. So I have a syntax error here. It doesn't like that I'm using the arrow function that way. Let's look up MDN, JavaScript, comparators, probably comparison operators, but okay. So this will give us the less than or equal should work, I believe. So I'm not sure why it didn't like that. Oh. That doesn't look right. Let's see here. Yeah, that should work. Less than or equal. So less than or equal, or greater than or equal. So greater than or equal. Oh, you know what? I'm missing the that's a silly mistake. I'm missing the variable in there. So let's fix that error. Okay, that looks right. And now I'm missing a parentheses after the argument list. So what's going on here? Let's see. I got that build greeting. I must have a missing parentheses somewhere. Huh. Okay, they must not like that I had that on the next line, I guess. Let's see. Let's try this again. Let's just build this up a little bit. Put a parentheses here for else. Okay, so that looks good. So why don't we go through the rest of these? we've done this one. Let's check the build greeting with parameter argument or arguments of 12 and John. So in this case, it's actually within that afternoon period. So there's good afternoon, John. So that works. We'll do 22 and Stacy. That's evening. 31. That is not a real time, Derek. Maybe you need some sleep. The only thing I don't like about this is the period is on the next line. So let's fix that. So we'll add a period here, and we'll remove the period here. Add a space. That looks better. Okay, and yeah, that looks good. So we'll go on to the next challenge. Challenge 5 is next. Challenge 5 says index of is a function that you can call on a string 1 that accepts another string. Oh, you know what, guys? I need to plug in my laptop, so give me 1 second, guys. All right. Back again. So challenge 5. Index of is a function that you can call on a string 1 that accepts another string 2 as an argument. It searches through string 1 from left to right, checking each character to see if it can find string 2. If it finds string 2, it returns the index position of the first character that matches string 2. If it cannot find string 2, it returns -1. Enter the index position you think. Index of will return for each below. So it tells us how index of works. Basically returns the it basically identifies the position of the match, right? So in this case, we'll run this and I'll show you guys how this works. Index of here, codesmith with the argument or the search being O. So in this case, it should return 2, right? So because index of O, that index position would be the second letter. Let me make sure here that let's look up before we guess at that. Let's look up MDN index of, because I think the index may actually start at 0. Let's see here. Give us an example. So console.log beast index of bison. So yeah, it starts, I believe, at the 0 level. So in this case, it would actually return 1 because the O is actually the second element. So it's 0, 1, right? And we'll test this. If this is true, this console log calls within its argument. This is a Boolean, right? This evaluates to a Boolean. So it's saying is whatever that's returned from index of equal to 1, true or false. And so if I'm right, it would actually return true. If I'm wrong, it would return false. So let's try that out. Index of is not defined. Interesting. Okay. So I guess we need to build an index of then? Okay, let's do that. I thought it was probably an inherent function that was available. okay, they're invoking it in a different way. So let's just build it and let's see what happens. So function index of, let's say string 1, string 2. Create our pseudocode. So what we're going to do is we're going to iterate through string 1 and check if the element equals to the string. What would be the best way to do this? I mean, a way to do it would probably be to go through the for loop and do it. However, maybe a better way might be to let's see what methods MDN search for string. Let's see what methods JavaScript has available inherently. So I don't think I want to use a regex for this. Let's see, string prototype app. No, that's not what we need either. Maybe a match. That's not exactly what I was looking for. Let's see here. Normalize, raw, repeat, replace, search, split, starts with substring. A little bit. I mean, I know we can definitely solve it with the for loop, but I guess we'll use the index of method. That makes the most sense, right? So what we'll do is we'll invoke index of, and we'll provide the argument. So let's go back to our function here. We'll say string 1 dot index of string 2. I think that's how that works. So paragraph index of, and we'll call the index. So we'll have to store this value. So we will let index equal string.index of string 2, and then what we're going to do is so let me just document some things here. Index stores the index position of the match. And one thing we'll need to make sure we do, because it says here that if it cannot find string 2, it returns -1. So what we want to do is check to see if if it's undefined, it returns -1. So that's exactly what we want. So what we're going to then do is return, finally, return the index value. So return index. That's it. So now if I run this function, this console, well, if I run the method console log with the index of codesmith O and I equal it to 1, that should come out as true. There we go. And then I can do the rest of these. We're not going to do them all in a batch, but we'll fill them in as we go, and we'll just make sure that we understand this exercise. So this should return hello with LL should return 0, 1, 2, should return 2. Zebra should return 0. Banana with the B should return, let's see how they want us to treat the uppercase. It doesn't really say, so I'm going to say -1 because it's not exact. But that might be something for us to test with the index of function, because I don't know if it's an exact match or if it does it on capitalization. So let's try all these. It all checks out. If this last example, they wanted us to match basically without case sensitivity, what we could do is convert the arguments into an upper or lower and use the same function that way, and we would have accomplished what the intent was there. So that exercise is done. We'll close out of those. Challenge 7 is next. Or letter exist, I'm sorry, challenge 6. Create a function letter exists that takes a word, string, and a character and console logs whether that letter can be found inside that word. So we can actually probably use the same function. So I'm probably gonna just do that. So here, I'll show you guys how that would work. So function letter exists takes argument word and an argument letter. And so what we can do is we can say if index of, and we'll supply the word and the letter, right? If this does not, well, let's say if it equals -1, then what we need to do is return false. Why do I return false? Well, we know that index of the function we built, it returns -1 if it doesn't find anything, and it returns then a positive or 0 integer if it finds the position. So we can basically assign this when we invoke index of with the arguments word and letter, we can compare that to -1, and if it's -1, we know that we didn't find the value. Else, just return true because we know it exists, right? So return true. There you go. So now we can try this and start building and using the functions we've created before. Rather than reinventing the wheel each time, we should be able to just simply do this. So in a similar manner, we have Superman with the letter E. That should return true, obviously. We have Starship with the capital letter S. That should return false. This with the 1, that should return true. And then hello with the capitalization should return true because there's an exclamation point here. So we'll run those. Should get all trues, 4 trues. Well, 3 trues and 1 false, I'm sorry. Oh, you know what? keep in mind, guys, when this is run, so when I invoke this function, notice I'm not console logging here. So I'm not going to get anything in my window. So in order to show this, I should actually console log. Console.log. Console.log false. Or you know what, to make it a little bit more preferred way, I can do this. Console log each of these statements. And what a console log allows us to do is just see what the results are, right, from our return statement. So we're using this method. And console.log. Console.log. All right, try it again. There we go. So we got that done. Moving on to the next one. See where we are at in our minutes. We got 5 minutes left. Function is prime. So create a function is prime that console logs a boolean indicating if number is prime or not. So this is an interesting one. Let's think about first how to do this. We know that the Modelo function can help us here. What a Modelo function, let's look that up for everybody. And I'm just talking out loud. Modelo operator. I don't know how it exactly works in JavaScript because that's not, again, not a developer, but it's basically a remainder function that returns the remainder left over when an operand is divided by the second operand. So an example that is like 13 into 5 would return 3, which means it's not actually directly divisible, right? Whereas if you look at the example here, 4 remainder 2, there's basically no remainder. So we can essentially use that to prove out, if you will, the ability of say a number to actually have some divisibility. And so if we take on, for example, a 2 and a 3, presumably that should tell us if it has some divisibility, right? So let's prove that out. So let's do some code here. Check remainder of number divided by 2. Check remainder of number divided by 3. If both, oh, I should create, this is pseudocode, so we got to put the comments there. So if both results return